All right, guys, so I'm going to get started here. So you can just follow along. You don't have to do, exactly what I'm doing part for part. I'm just going to cover some of the basics. So the first thing is this menu up top. So we've got our toolbar on the side. I like to use the large tool set. So if you right click anywhere up top in this gray bar, you can select that to remove it or put it back in. So I work off this a lot, and I like to have these buttons up here. So these are camera angles.
Ryan,
you can also
see yours, what you're doing.
Oh yeah, geez. Sorry, I don't know why it blinked out on me there.
I mean, you have a great face, but
can you see my screen now, or is it still?
I see it.
Okay, so you see this design? It looks like,
yep.
Okay, SketchUp design. All right, cool.
I see it.
Uh-oh. I'm not sure why that would be.
Let me just get out of everything else.
Yeah, maybe try minimizing because it might be hidden behind one of your other windows there.
Well, don't wait for me. I'll figure it out. Sorry.
All right. So we've got a large tool set here. We've got different views. So if I uncheck this, my views will go away. So we've got ISO, top, front, left, right, back, and styles. So you don't need to use styles. I also like to have styles up top here. And what that does is it just gives you different options. So like if I wanted to do, say, hidden line, I can do black and white versus the shaded with the texture. So I usually stick with the shaded, but sometimes if I need to do drawings for the spec guide, I'll pop over to hidden line.
So I'm sorry. Can I interrupt? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sure.
When I look at my SketchUp, all I have is a pretty simple toolbar up on top. I don't have all that stuff on the left. Where do I do that?
Right click in that gray bar right below the heading, and then you should see large tool set.
Okay, there it is. Got it.
Yep. Okay. And so I use that all the time. I think it's just an easier way. It has a lot more functions available, a lot more tools available there.
And what are the things to the right of the 3D warehouse icons? Like all that other stuff.
Yeah, so these are just display modes. So like I showed, so like this would be like hidden line is like black and white.
So how do I get those to show up? I don't have those icons.
Yeah, same thing. So you right click and then you select views, or sorry, styles under the toolbar. So you select styles, those will pop up for you.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. And so if I'm going to start off, what I usually do is I would normally do like a quick sketch, maybe a drawing, or put down some ideas of what you want. You don't have to. You could just start plunking stuff in. So for example, if I wanted to pull stuff into my library, what I would do is I would go to open or create a local collection on the right-hand side here. And then I'm going to select wherever that's saved on my desktop. So if I saved all my SketchUp files on my desktop, I've got them under libraries. I can select P1, P2, P3. And those are those library links that I had in that Google Drive email. So you can download that at your leisure. You don't have to, but I think it just makes it a lot easier, because once you have it loaded in and you're pointing to that folder, you can just grab an object. Like if I want an OBD11, I can just left click on it. It might take a little bit to load here because it's using a lot of graphics here between Zoom on one screen and SketchUp on the other, so it might take a little bit longer than normal, but there's my object or my component. I left click to place it in my model. And then after I place it, usually the first thing I like to do is I like to go into dynamic components right after. So if I had a side panel, I could add that side panel on as well. Yeah, it's taking its sweet time, but when I right click, I have my dynamic components options here. And here's where you can make all the modifications to that part. So I can change the cabinet depth, I can change the cabinet width, I can change the door style, center panel finish, powder coat, everything you need is in here. Hinge direction. And if I wanted to select a leg cover, I could do that here. So in the next iteration of this catalog, we're going to default to a standard black toe kick versus showing no kick and just the legs. So it'll save you at least a click for most instances, because we found that it doesn't really make sense to show the cabinets with just legs and no toe kick.
But you'd still be able to change that if you wanted to show the legs behind it?
Yes. Yep. You still have the option. All these options will remain the same. It's just going to default to this black toe kick.
So the way I've done this in the past is I've actually brought in objects from the 3D warehouse.
Yep.
But so this is where, you know, and Peter, my rep, had talked to me about, you know, just having the local objects, which you just sent us on our computer, which I loaded here. How do I access them from my computer as opposed to the 3D warehouse? Because I know how to do it from the 3D warehouse.
Yeah, so that was what I was showing here. So like when you click on open or create a local collection, all that's doing is it's pointing to the location, and then it'll find it. So click that button and then find the file on your desktop, like wherever that folder is saved.
So, all right. And I guess when I look at my default tray, I don't have entity information. You know, I've got styles, tags, shadows, scenes. Do I do the plus? No. How do I suck in that guy?
The components, if you don't have components listed, go to default tray, and then you'll see under here, there's a bunch of check boxes.
Oh,
so you should have materials, components. Yeah. So if components is unchecked, check that, and then it'll pop right up.
Now it's there. Okay.
Cool. Yep. Yeah, it's a little tricky on the initial setup, but once it's set, then it's good, you know, going forward.
Got it.
All right, so I switched that over. Let's say I'm going to add a side panel too, if I'm designing left to right. So I'm going to go back to my library. You can search 3D Warehouse. It's a little bit clunkier and slower though. So if I have this imported in, I'm just going to select wherever I want to go. So in this case, it's going to be P3 accessories. And I'm going to scroll down and grab my side panel. So the other thing to note is that right now we have a separation between models where we have an OSP Brown Jordan and OSP Danver. That's to account for the powder coat colors and door styles. However, in the next iteration of SketchUp that we're doing, they're all going to be merged into one model. So rather than having to go through 3 different models in triplicate, all the options for all the brands are going to be available in one model, which will make your life a lot easier and my life a lot easier.
And yours, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're doing a design, you won't have to start from scratch just to pull in, you know, a Trex model or a Brown Jordan model. So it's going to give users all the options all in one shot. And then on the quoting end, obviously you'll have to select which brand. Like it won't let you do Trex door styles on a Danver kitchen, just like, you know, it is currently in QED. So when I bring in that side panel, I just left click to place it. I don't have to get the placement perfect here. So don't go nuts trying to get it, you know, attached to your cabinet. Sometimes I get lucky and I can get it right on the first time, like this one in this case, but most of the time it won't be that way. So if you have your side panel placed, it's a little tricky because you've got to like maneuver over the top. I like to use like the top down view a lot, so you can see where the corners and edges line up. And if you grab it from the corner, you'll see a little purple bubble pop up. And then when you move it, you can notice, you know, how it separates, and you can see when you're locked in place because that bubble will pop up again on the adjacent object. So you want to just lock in that corner and make sure your edges are flush. If I want to do a side panel on the other side, what I would do is go to dynamic components again. So I would right click, and my computer can't keep up with me. It's trying to do too much right now.
But this is a situation I've noticed that if we're going to be doing a lot of this, it makes sense to buy a computer that has a pretty fast graphics card.
Yes.
Because we're basically like doing AutoCAD.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you do have to have a good graphics card. And it's funny because like when I design outside of Zoom, like I don't have any issues, but with Zoom running on one screen and then, you know, SketchUp running on a different screen, it kind of slows it down. So what I might try doing actually is I might just swap screens. because I think it will be faster overall. So I'm just gonna stop my share for a second. And I'm gonna pop over to my other screen because I think it'll be easier on my graphics card rather than trying to do it on my external monitor, which is bigger, but it's I think it's easier this way. All right, here we go. So if I share, okay, can you guys see my my screen now?
Yep.
There you go.
Cool. All right, I'm going to drag this over and we're good. All right. So now if I go to dynamic components, component options again, I'll notice panel orientation. So I can flip between left and right if I need to. And then toe kick is still on there as well. So I would select my right side orientation to flip it, hit apply. And you'll notice here that it flips. See, this is another thing that is going to get corrected on the next library change. Because really, if we're flipping this panel, it should still stay in the same plane in the same location. It shouldn't go all the way over one side panel over. So we are adjusting this as well. So that will be corrected on the second go around. But what's important to know is that movement is huge here. So like I use my space mouse, like I'm using my space mouse now. I can center over the top. I can look right in at that corner as close as I want to get it and then lock it in place. Yep. So if I didn't have a space mouse, I'll show you what that process looks like and why you just end up going crazy after a while. So if let's just say I have this in space, I'm going to hit my select tool. I'd have to click on my movement tool. I'd have to zoom in and I can orbit using my scroll wheel. So if you have your mouse wheel, you hold it down and you can orbit side to side. The problem is if I wanted to go to the front of this part, I have to click pan and then drag and zoom all the way out to where I need to be. With a space mouse, I can just drag, pan, and zoom and orbit as much as I want or as little as I want. So it just kind of saves, you've got two hands to work with versus one hand to work with. All right, so let's bring that back. And I use shortcuts. So like I'm using a movement shortcut right now to just drag this back over the corner and zoom out. So let's, I'm going to show another weird kind of example, which would be the OAF. So corners are one of the trickiest things in this program that I've found. So if I had an L run, let's say, so let's grab this. I'm just going to grab this side panel off and drag it so that I can do this left to right still. So I want to build off this right side of my cabinet into an L. I'm going to select an OAF 90, which is a front filler, 90 degrees. From my list of parts. All right, here it is. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to left click again to place it in my design. And now this is where it gets a little weird. So you've got a couple different bends going on here, which makes it kind of funny. So if I hover over the top, I'm going to try to zoom in close here. And so there's a joggle bend and then there's this this regular edge. So I like to grab front fillers by this endpoint here and then lock it in with the front edge of that drawer front or door front if there's no drawer above. And so that should get me where I want to be and also if there's a little reveal, because we do allow a little reveal of the joggle bend, you could always grab it and bump it out a little bit as well. So you can hold that 1/8 inch reveal. That looks like, proper filler placement versus having it right up against that edge. So it's a little funky because like it's even funky in 2020. Like if you've done any 2020 design work, you'll see that those L's don't always go together exactly perfectly. So that's just something to play around with, especially with the 3D mouse. And now if I want to build off that second corner, I'm going to go back to my base cabinets. So I'm just going to go to my listing. Let's say I want to pull in a 3-drawer unit. Left click that 3-drawer. It's going to load in. Anytime today. We're getting old and gray here, SketchUp. And the other thing is that the more models and the more objects you have, just like in CAD, the slower it'll be because it's trying to process all those different components and all those different separate objects. So if you have a small design, it's probably a lot faster. I had a couple things preloaded in here because I just wanted to show.
Well, you've got that big kitchen behind it.
Behind it, yeah. So that's what I'm going to show, and I might actually just delete that to see if it'll speed us up a little bit because I just wanted to show like design, like best in practice sort of design things to think about. All right, there we go. So I'm going to drop that in. So you'll notice how sometimes parts will kind of float too, like they might not necessarily be in the same plane. So it's important to note that. But if I go over my top view here, if I'm in my movement tool, I'll see these little like crosshairs and these little crosses. So this is how I rotate my object. So I'm just going to grab it by the crosshair. It'll automatically snap into place. Like once I'm in that plane, that green axis, it'll let me know. So I left click to snap into that axis. And again, I like to drag by the corners. Like you can drag by the sides too, but I just find it's easier to manipulate objects if you're grabbing by the corners versus the sides or the middle. And then
Well,
if I snap,
sometimes you like stretch the object into a weird shape if you grab it wrong.
right, exactly. And it's not as much an issue with dynamic components, but with other objects, yes, you can kind of like fudge other objects a little bit. So there's my corner. And before I go any further, I'm going to show these two kitchens and then probably just delete them just so I can show you what I'm talking about here.
Hey, before you go off that other one,
Yep.
I assume we could change the legs of the OAF to different sizes. Like say we wanted to do a 4-6.
Yep.
Is that just a right click on that thing to do it?
Yep. So you right click, go to options, and then you can type in say 4-4. Yep. And then hit apply.
Got it.
Right now, the legs, that's another feature. The legs aren't an option, or sorry, the toe kick isn't an option, but it will be an option in the next batch too. So let's say I just wanted to show this kitchen as an example. So I had a question the other training that brought up a good point, and they said, well, you know, what's the ideal or what's the best situation or design for appliances, like for certain appliances, like say for a grill base, a warming drawer, and a bartending base or a side burner base. And I said, well, there is no one answer. You know, everybody designs different ways, but there are things that I would not do in a run. So like this is an example of what I would not do in a run because you've got appliances stacked like one on top of each other. You know, you got a warming drawer, you got a grill base, you got a side burner base. It's too cluttered. So it's better if you can give it a little space, you know, a little breathing room. So these are two runs the exact same size, but what we did is we took out the warming drawer here and we put in a door base. So we got a door base, we got breathing room here so that we have countertop space next to the grill. Because I never like seeing people stack a grill and then a side burner right next to it. Because imagine if you're cooking, where are you going to put your hot dogs? Where are you going to put your hamburgers? Where are you going to put your, you know, your trash? So best in practice that I'd seen and I would recommend is leave breathing room between your appliances, especially your grills and your side burners. And a popular favorite that I've seen is trash units. So in this case, I've got, I think an OBT 1810. Yeah, it might even be a 24. So let me just double check to.
Yeah,
to
our rule
that.
of thumb is 18 inches on each side of the grill for prep area.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good thing to go by for sure. Yeah, see, I've got a 27 in here. So this is a big guy. You don't have to go 27, but at least allow, you know, 18 inches on either side, just to give yourself space to work there. Another common thing that I kind of see too is you can do it, but it doesn't always look the best if you want to put a refrigerator next to an ice maker or refrigerator next to say a kegerator. You can, you know, it's not going to hurt anything, but a lot of times if you leave a little bit of room, a little bit of storage in between, I think it looks a little better. functionality, I'm not sure. It just depends on the client's preference.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
I think frequently we're also a true dealer, so we'll put an ice maker. A lot of times the look of having a refrigerator and an ice maker next to each other is nice. But
Yep.
now, what is sort of your recommendation for the maximum span before you need a support in between to carry the countertop? You know, what we've sort of said is if the general contractor doing the installation puts some kind of a steel structure to support it, because if somebody sits on the countertop on a big run, it's just going to crack the countertop. So what's your thought on that? When do you add an OBX or whatever?
Yeah, so if it's an ice maker with a fridge next to it, ice makers are typically 15, fridges are typically 24. So, I mean, you're looking at 39 inches and change, you know, 40 inches and change. So you might be able to get away with it. My recommendation is always go with the OBX. Like, you're always going to be safe with an OBX in between. It's not going to hurt anything. It doesn't change the overall layout that much. It adds 2.88 inches because that's like the smallest size we offer. So I'd say if you have appliances side by side, even if they're not 24 each, I would almost always put an OBX there, unless you have like a hefty countertop. Like if you got a 2-inch countertop, it's probably not going to matter. But if you're working with Decton or something really thin, like that's, you know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, then I would probably worry about that. So that's a good point. So I just want to show the difference too. So while we're on the subject, so here's a true refrigerator, 2-drawer refrigerator. This on the end is an ORP. So the difference between an ORP and an OBX is that an ORP is used to terminate a run. It's finished on the front side, it's finished on this side, and then the back side. It's not finished on the inside because you need an attachment point for the refrigerator spacer that would go on the back. So this vented part here is your refrigerator spacer. If you had a situation like Mike mentioned, where you have, say, a refrigerator here and a refrigerator here, then you would put an OBX box column between them. And I'll grab one of those just to show that. Here's an OBX. Okay, so OBX. So now it's in the wrong plane or the wrong axis, but that's easy to change once we pop it in. We're going to hover over the top again, use our check marks, rotate it. Once it locks, you'll notice that it'll turn all that solid line. So in this case, it's on the red plane. And then we're good. So difference here is, so you see these openings. This is actually a little bit off because we only have these cutouts on one side in the actual unit. So we're adjusting this as well. So there's attachment points here along the top. There's screw holes for the ORS on one side and screw holes for the refrigerator spacer on the other side as well. So you'd use an OBX between two appliances side by side.
And you can do, if you were putting these on like an ice maker and a fridge in the same opening, we can actually get, what is it, a 39-inch spacer, right? You guys do that.
Yeah, yep. I forget the maximum. Now that you mention that, let me bring that up because that's a perfect kind of segue into the adjustment here. So if I grab my ORS, this is my spacer, and I right click, dynamic components, and where are my options? I think I got it minimized. Let me just double check here. Sometimes it gets dragged off screen, so I can't find it. All right, there we go. Okay. So yeah, so I can type in my panel width here. So here's the max. Yes, we offer up to 48 inches width in those refrigerator spacers. So if you wanted to do two side-by-side 24s, you could, but they'd have to be a little bit under 24 because usually allow for about 1/8 of an inch on either side clearance on those fridges. So I typed in 39 inches, I hit apply, it's gonna grow that panel. And I can do this for a lot of parts. It's not just the refrigerator spacer. I can do this on OFLF front fillers. I can do this on end fillers. I can do it on OAFs, the corner fillers. I can do it on the backs that would accompany the corner fillers. So there's a lot of adjustment here and a lot of parts. Changing the door style to techno integrated handles. So that would also be under your component options. So if I go under options, and I'm not sure that this is a Brown Jordan base, but the techno would be available under that base. So let's see if this gives me that option. Yeah, so here it is. Yep. So door style techno. And if I wanted to change the finish, I could change the powder coat, let's say to new black, hit apply. And it'll kind of tick down at the bottom a little bit, depending on how many objects you've got. And then it'll apply that, that door face. Come on. There we go. Yep. So this is available too. This is available in 2020 as well, but I like the renderings, but I think these renderings are going to be better overall. Especially once we have the new handles put in place, because right now we're still running with the old T-bar pulls instead of the cutoff handles, but those will be updated soon too.
So 2 questions for you.
Yep.
Do you guys have artwork for a overlay panel ready true refrigerator instead of this one? Like
Yes.
These came from True, correct?
Yes. Yep. These came from True Manufacturing. So I'm not sure what they have available. So I haven't used one in a while, but let me see if I can pull one up here through the 3D warehouse. So if I say True,
I don't think they have it. I mean, the last time I looked, it wasn't there.
yeah, they might not have it updated yet because they do have some stuff shown here.
But we can't, but like to have it have the same behavior as
Yep.
the Danver cabinets,
Yep.
you know, is something that ultimately we would like to be able to do if we're going through the bother of making a, you know, one of these models. The other question I have for you is when you guys make these updates and we need to re-download all these entities, are these on your website someplace, or where is this stuff going to live?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually I talked with Phil, our marketing director, about that, because right now we don't have a hosting site, but we are getting a hosting site. I think we might go with Google Drive, like a company Danver Google Drive, where you can have all this stuff for download for the dealers. The reason SketchUp, because I asked SketchUp about this, I'm like, hey, why don't you guys have it available to everybody just like 2020 does? And they said it's a matter of security because they're worried that people are going to download assets from another company, like steal them and then, you know, rework them to whatever they need them to be, because they're essentially writing all that code in for the dynamic component options. So that's why they're not all listed for download on 3D Warehouse. But yes, we will definitely host those once we come out with new updates. So let me just fix this corner, and then I'm going to show you guys how I apply countertop. So I'm going to move this again, take this from the corner and then position it, try to get it pretty close here. It's a little tricky with, like I said, with the OAFs because they've got joggle bends on them, so they don't always want to line up the way you want them to. But that looks good because you want the top of the drawer front to line up with the top of the filler, and then you've got your reveal for the countertop. All right, so if I zoom out, I'm going to go to my rectangle tool on the left-hand side, and then you'll notice this little blue box. So that's denoting usually the plane or the axis. So I'm going to drag across. I like to go from corner to corner when I can, and I don't know why, I haven't figured this out yet, but even if they're on the same plane, sometimes you'll get like little artifacts and stuff that comes up. It's just something to live with, you know, it's just part of the program. But you'll notice when I hover over this with my push pull tool, so I select push pull, I'm going to see this blue pop up on the surface. I can click this and then drag it up manually, and you'll notice the distance on the right hand corner here changes. If I want to come to an exact dimension, like say I know I need 1.25 inch countertops, then I can type that in. I don't have to guess. I can just type in 1.25 inches, hit enter on my keyboard, and there, I've got my 1.25 inch. Now the problem is, obviously, I have this weird cutout or this square cutout that I don't want. I want to shrink this. So what I found to do is I like to grab an edge. So like I'll highlight this one edge with the push-pull tool. And I usually like to drag it back to the front edge of the drawer front. I'll left click again, and then I'm going to create a separation here where the corner is.
Draw a line.
Yep, exactly. So I'm going to split this into two objects because otherwise it's thinking it's all the same object when I go to push pull it. So I'm going to go for my corner edge here, endpoint. Should be able to find it. Whoop. Sometimes I gotta rearrange a little bit, but I should be able to grab that edge. And then you'll notice if I go too far to one side, it'll stop going on center. So you want to keep that center blue line on edge. So there I've got my straight line. And then I zoom out. I like to use my space mouse here. Otherwise I'd have to scroll. So I could use my scroll wheel if I don't have a space mouse. And then push pull again. And then grab this one surface. So I'm just grabbing this surface of the countertop. I'm going to drag it across. I'm going to end it wherever my run ends. So I like to, again, using the edges to your advantage here. So I'm using my, there we go, midpoint. So that's the edge of my cabinet. And the reason I do that is because say I know the exact look that I want. Say I know I want an inch overhang on the sides. After this is done loading, I can just touch that edge again. I can type in my distance of 1 inch, and then I have 1 inch overhang.
Can you apply a Decton overlay to that countertop for visually?
Yeah, yep. And that's why I'm glad you asked that. That's actually one of my things coming up right after this. Because no. You're not stealing my thunder. You're ahead of the game. So let me yeah, see, it's taking its time now. Let me
One of the things though, I think that's sort of, I would go do it if I could find it. I think you really need a fairly good working knowledge of SketchUp. Mm-hmm. And that's not really for you guys to provide, but do you know of any good books or classes or whatever that could sort of get us up to speed fairly quickly with SketchUp? Because there's a lot of subtleties to it that, it's a complicated program.
It is, yeah. No, it's definitely complicated. I don't, but I can definitely ask. I'm going to ask around to see if what sales did, because I know inside sales. It's funny, when we first got introduced to this program about a year ago, nobody in inside sales wanted to use it. Everybody was afraid of it. But as they used it and became acclimated with it, they grew to love it. Now they can't live without it. So it's one of those things where it's almost like you don't know what you don't know until you start using it. And I had no idea either. Like, I'm like, well, how do I get going? And they showed me the basics, just like I'm going through with you, like what's push pull, what's move, what's, draw a line. And it's like, you got to kind of play around with it a little bit, not every day, but throw in some time now and then. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, well, now I know everything besides this. And then John David, actually, your rep in California, he's really strong in SketchUp. So
Peter.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Peter. But John David is the other rep in SoCal.
Southern California, right.
Yeah. So Peter doesn't use it, but John David uses it, and he's excellent with it. So I've asked him quite a few questions because he's definitely proficient in it.
Cool.
So I'm going to drag this corner out, or this edge out. I'm going to do the same thing. If I want 1 inch distance, I just type in 1 inch, hit enter, and there's my overhang. Now, so Mike just brought up a great point. He's like, well, what if the customer wants to see a certain countertop look? Well, we can do that. So under your toolbar, if you don't have it already, I just want to show under window. So under default tray, you should have materials checked off. And if I scroll down to materials, I can go down and select what I want. So I can create a new material, which is what I did in this case. So I would go create material. I have a color wheel here if I want to just do a color, or I can hit the folder on the right and browse for an image file. So in this case, I saved the image file already. Like I have a detail of the Decton countertop saved, and I created a mini library for that. So I would hit OK, and I would save this with whatever name I wanted to if I was doing this from scratch. Right. So in this case, I have my library saved. It's under Decton. But you can call it whatever you want. You can do stone countertop as an option. You can do, Corian, whatever you want. As long as you have an image file, you can save that material and save it as a folder. So I saved Decton. I like to use Trillium because it looks pretty cool as an option. So I use Trillium. It's going to automatically bring up my paint bucket, and then I have to paint all these edges. I'm going to start with the front edge, side edges, and then finally the top. Oh, I didn't select Trillium. I thought I selected Trillium. All right, Trillium. For some reason, it's not applying my material color. Huh.
Weird.
That is weird. Yeah, so I just had it selected. Let me. Huh. All right. Well, now I've stumped myself. There we go. Now, see, it looks like it's applying it now. It's just giving me a hard time. So that should come up with my, normally this would come up with my Trillium powder coat or my Trillium material. I'm not sure why it's not displaying right now. So let me just go back into materials and try to minimize that or get that knocked out here. If I select stone, for example, let's go with stone and see if it's applying. Yeah, for some reason it's not pulling the image file. It's just pulling part of the
It implied something. It
yeah.
made it green, so who knows?
Yeah, it's odd. So I'm not sure if it's just the loading thing where it's not like loading the. Yep.
You have to move the view over to the next one over to the right. So it looks like a palette, like up at your toolbar.
Yep. On the right side up here.
Now, like up on your, where you're next to your viewport, where you have your shading and textures and hidden lines and all that stuff. Up in the top of your toolbar.
Yep.
Yeah, so go to the next one over, click the next one.
Yep, hidden line. Yeah, it's taking its time here. I think it's because I think it was there, but I think it's not loading it in because it's
yeah, because you need the one to the right is shaded with textures, and that'll give you all the lines and everything.
That one.
This one, yeah. Yeah, so that's probably why it's, yeah, because I switched the texture off.
There's all these subtleties to SketchUp that,
yep.
You know, I just think I want to try and find some kind of a SketchUp class, because you can use this thing for so much more than just laying out cabinetry. This is a pretty powerful program.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. That's okay.
Yep. Yep. So that was it. So I just had I had to adjust my style because I forgot I turned my style to the different settings. So now if I select Trillium, so it was just picking up the color before, but now if I have Trillium selected, there we go. So now it'll apply, you know, and the thing that's limiting though is obviously it's based on the size of that swatch. So if I pull a swatch that's this big, it's just going to keep repeating that swatch across. So it's not perfect, but it's better than, you know, anything else that you can show at this point. So we went over kind of push pull. So push pull you're going to use a lot for countertop and for stretching objects, shrinking objects. Another thing that I like to use is the scale tool. So let me bring in a sync base to show you where I'd use that. So I'm going to go back up to my components. I'm going to select, let's say, base cabinets. And I'm going to scroll down to OBS. So that's my sync base. Let's pull in an 01 unit. And I'm going to grow this. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I can work with it. Oops, not attributes. We go to options. Let's bring it out to 24, let's say. So I'm just going to do a down and dirty countertop here just for sake of time. So I got my counter. I'm going to push pull again, select the top, bring it up to 1 1/4. And now if I want to put a sink in here, the easiest way I found is I go to my side tab again. I have a collection saved of like sinks and faucets that I like to use. So I recommend like if you have parts that and components that you like to use, save them locally, and then you can keep using them over and over again. So you always have the same look on your design. So by dragging this sink and load this up, it's a little bit big for the sink base, but that's easy to fix. So I can use my scale tool over to the left. So there's this little scale tool, 200 move, and it'll come up with all these corner pieces and side pieces to drag from. So I recommend dragging from the corner because it's going to scale it down accordingly. If you drag it from the inside or outside, it'll stretch it in kind of not in proportion. You know, it won't look right. Like it'll stretch the size of the drain and stuff like that. So let's just shrink this down a little bit and then use my move tool. I'm going to pick it up. And the easiest way I've found to do cutouts for these is you actually place it right on the surface of the countertop. So now I grab my line tool and I'm just going to do like a trace around it. So I'm going to start at one of the corners. I'm going to trace from corner to corner and then rotate my camera corner to corner.
Wow.
And then I'm going to rotate again. It can't keep up with me though. Normally it keeps up with me when I'm not on a Zoom call, but it's
Tell Mitch you need a faster computer.
I know, right? So there we go. So now I've made my box below. So after I got my box, I'm going to reselect my movement tool. I'm going to grab it. I like to grab it from the midpoint. And whenever I'm moving, if I want to move in the Z axis, use up on the arrow key. So the reason is it'll stay in that blue axis. It won't be able to move left and right. So up on the arrow key, once you have an object selected and move, is going to stay up and down. And then if I want to do the other planes, I could do that as well. So let me show you that. But let's do this first before I get too far ahead of myself. So up on the arrow key. So now I've got this notch out. Whoop, I did not want to bring it all the way back down. So we're going to leave that above the countertop. Come on. There we go. All right. So I left click to place it, and then I'm going to select push pull. So now I'm cutting out my countertop to cut out this notch out for the sink. So notice it turns blue, like a light blue. That means you've got that face selected. Yeah, Mitch might have to invest in a faster presenting computer for me, because right now I'm working off a laptop and it's good. It's a good ThinkPad, but I think it's tough when you're doing a video call on one side of the screen and then trying to do a design in the other one.
They don't normally put a super graphics controller in a laptop, so yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to cut the hole before that thing will sink? I guess, yeah, you must.
Yeah.
Because it's an undermount, right?
Yeah. So in this case, yeah, this is an undermount. If you didn't cut the hole, what would happen is, like, if you just you could drop it down and it would sit like with the countertop, but the countertop would show through the sink, you know, so it would just kind of be hovering in the middle of the sink. It's taking its sweet time here. So let me, all right. There we go. So now, yes, you'll see like it'll drop down that notch out. I can click again. So it cuts that out of the face. And then in order to drop it in, all I'm going to do now is select my move tool again. I'm selecting that same middle edge. I'm going to hit up. So I'm selecting my Z axis and then drop it right in place. So now it's flush. So now I have a perfect cutout for that sink based on, you know, the dimensions that I just cut out of the counter. So it's a nice way to show a sink. And then if I want to do a gooseneck, I can select a gooseneck right below it, right behind it. You can just, you know, center it however you see fit. And there's your sink and faucet. So like there's different things that I think you can do here that there's a lot more flexibility, but obviously that adds complexity versus a 2020 design where you're starting with a 2D design, you're plunking things next to each other. They snap together pretty quickly, but you can't get as complex and as detail oriented as you can with this software. So it's just, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Well, 2020 is also way more money than SketchUp, is it not?
It is. It is significantly more money. Yep. It's they've kind of kind of got a racket, I call it, and Mitch calls it a racket, because they've got the market cornered where they're the big game in town, and they can,
design.
yeah, for kitchen design. So they can do what they want. They can charge what they want. So SketchUp Pro is $300 a year, I believe.
Right.
2020 is anywhere from, I think, $750 to $1,000, maybe even higher, depending on what your options are. And another tool that I would recommend checking out and using is the dimension tool. So if I wanted to see like the overall size of a cabinet or of a run, I'd select dimension. I can select the edge. I can go from edge to edge. And sometimes you'll notice it doesn't always pick up the right edge. So you got to kind of be a little careful, a little, it's a little finicky, I guess is the way to put it. Because it doesn't always want to grab the edge that you're looking for. Because like for this example, like I definitely know it's not 1 foot 11 and 13/16 inches. I know it's 24 wide. So it's just a matter of grabbing the right edge before you snap that dimension in. But a lot of times the edges of the door, edges of the drawer front are pretty close or pretty accurate, but sometimes it'll pick up like other things on the side. Like, see, in this case, there's this bevel, which is also going to be removed in the next catalog update. So we have these beveled edges. They're originally included for design purposes, but that's not, the way our edges actually look when you buy them. There is that rounded edge, but the way the polygons work is they do a rounded edge in like segments. So we could either have one flat beveled edge or just like a 90. So we're opting for the 90 degree in the next version.
So is that something you're paying consultants to draw up, or are you doing it yourself?
Yeah, we are paying an outside design consultant, Angularis, to draw our models, just like they're drawing them for BIM. Yep. And it is possible, like if I was, more math oriented and programming oriented, like you can program and design whatever you wanted to with dynamic components, but you just have to know how the software works. It's pretty complex. So I'm not a software engineer, so I don't get into that far, but you can design whatever you need. And I think I covered just about everything I wanted to, except for, yep, we went over the scale, we went over downloading parts, flipping parts.
You got a question there.
Oh yeah, yep. Components options, if possible, change width, fronts, and colors. Yes, good question. So yeah, dynamic components are really what makes our catalog and many others run. Like if it doesn't have a dynamic components option, then it's just a shape. It's just an object. So like you can stretch it, you can grow it, but it's not going to be to scale or to size really. So that's what really drives our catalog. So if I right click and go to component options, this is where I get, door style. So if I want to change the shaker style, I can. You mentioned width. This is where I would change my cabinet width, and color. So if I wanted to select a color, I would do it under door finish. And let's go with, I don't know, let's go with something fancy here. Let's go with trillium or nillium. Lots of iliums. So hit apply. And then, so it adjusted the door size, or sorry, the cabinet size, it adjusted the powder coat and the door style all right in one setting.
So if you had a design and you wanted to create two variants of it in terms of color and finish, you would have to change every object individually. There's not like a global option to make the whole thing instead of a Hampton door, a Key West door or something like that. You can't do a global.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you can and you can't. So here's the thing you can do. So I have 3 cabinets. Let's say I have all these parts in one run. These are all part of my run. I can hold down control. So I left click, I hold control, and I select the parts that I want.
Got it.
Now, if I right click and go to options, if they have all similar options, meaning if they're from the same family, like Danver or Brown Jordan, and they have all the same power code options, I can do that. I can select it. If they didn't, if they were different components from different libraries, then you couldn't. But in this case, because this is from the same library, from the same, options, I would typically be able to select this. But in this case, I have two cabinets merging together. So I have Brown, Jordan, and Danver. So this is a bad example. But let's say I've got.
And that's going away, right? You're correcting.
Yes, we're fixing that because of this problem. Because we don't want to have to select individually, what you want cabinet by cabinet. So this will go away where you will be able to select every single object in that run. Like here's an example. Okay, so I got two cabinets selected here. So I want to change this door finish to make them all Aura 15 and then make them all door style, say Key West. If I hit apply, then they will.
Right.
Yeah, because that was a frustrating option. That was a frustrating thing that we had to find out the hard way because, we're new to the catalog. We don't know what to expect. We're brand new to the software. So you learn these things kind of as you go. And so this was the one thing that we developed and we realized, oh, shoot, we've got these three brands. We really need global options so that users aren't having to select part by part by part to make modifications. So there you go. So now you can see it changed those two cabinets to the same door style, same powder coat. So that's going to happen, down the line. But that's something to watch out for if you are designing the current library. Just make sure whatever you're using is Danver or Brown Jordan. If you have them mixed, you can still do a kitchen. But the problem is if you're trying to select the Brown Jordan color or door style in a Danver cabinet, you won't be able to. So right now inside sales, what they've been doing is just designing every kitchen in Brown Jordan. That way, if the client changes and they say, oh, we want Brown Jordan instead of Danver, you're all set. You just select the Brown Jordan colors and door styles. All right, so I've been talking a lot. Any questions about the stuff I've covered or, even things that you're interested in the future with SketchUp?
I was curious how you got your library over into the component section.
Yeah, it's a great question. So
over it, but I kind of
no, it's fine because it is a little tricky. So if you go to components, there's a little arrow that says details, and you click that, left click, and then there's going to be an option to open or create a local collection. So what this is doing is it's pointing SketchUp to a certain file or folder on your system. So in this case, it's easiest I found if you save our library on the desktop. So what I did is, let me minimize, I'll show you my cluttered desktop. So I've got my SketchUp library saved under here, under this folder. So I've got P1, P2, P3. And this is just the categorization of how we sorted through our parts. This might change in the next version as well. So we've got an old version. These are a little clunkier files, larger files. The new version, the files are smaller. They load a lot faster. So what I would do is I'd go in here. I would open or create a local collection. I'm going to point to wherever I have it saved. In this case, I've got it saved to my desktop. Select SketchUp libraries, and then select the individual folder that you want it to point to. So I can't select 3 folders at once here. I can only select 1 folder at a time, but all the SketchUp objects in this folder will be picked based on that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And
So
then
that would be the same thing for like your gooseneck faucet?
Yes, exactly. So if I downloaded a gooseneck faucet, let's say, like I have this, let me bring it up so I can show you an example. So I go to sinks and faucets, got this faucet, and like you'll have an option when you search in the 3D warehouse. I'll do a search, gooseneck faucet. And it'll load up a whole bunch of options. I don't like searching through here because you can't filter through things. So you can't necessarily get the data you're looking for easy. But if I do pick it, I click on the green text and it's going to give me an option here. It's going to say, do you want to load this into your file or would you rather save it as something? So if I click download, it'll say load directly into SketchUp model. So most of the time, if I'm feeling lazy, I'll hit yes. Because it'll just load it right in. I'm not saving it anywhere. If I'm feeling more adventurous, I'll hit no. and then I'll save this in whatever collection I want it to go. So in this case, I want it to go in, let's say my SketchUp folder that I have. So let's go to, actually it's my desktop folder. So I'll go under SketchUp libraries. So if I want it to go here, I can just save it here, and let's call it a gooseneck faucet. I can hit save in that folder, and then that's where it's gonna live, and that's where I can generate my favorites or my collections, so to speak.
Okay.
So it's a little clunky, like it's not as intuitive as I'd like it to be, but it does work. You know, like for refrigeration, if I wanted to add refrigerators, I could save them here. But you just have to find where you want to group your files on your computer. Okay, for plinths. Okay, plinths. Adding plinths.
What's a plinth?
Yeah, I was just going to ask the same question. I've heard that term, but I haven't seen it in a while. So I was just wondering what a plinth is. Is that like a filler or a splice? Any other questions, guys, before I wrap up here? I know we covered a lot of stuff, so I don't expect, you know, you're not gonna master this stuff overnight. You gotta use it, you gotta play with it, and then the way I learned is just using it and then asking questions. That's the best way to learn, I think.
So I am still, if I can burden you with this question, I am still struggling with getting the files I downloaded from you to show up in my default tray.
Yep.
I don't have that there. I've got styles, tags, shadows, scenes, and instructor.
Yep. Go to, if you hover over the top, so like in this blank area, not all the way at the top, but right below it, there's this little gray. And then, oh, sorry, you're trying to add the components to the right side?
To get them in my default tray, yeah.
Default tray, okay. So no, you'd go actually to
Tools?
To window, and then default tray.
Default tray.
Yep, and then select components.
And so components is checked.
Yep.
But I have nothing showing there. I
mean, use the scroll. There's like a scroll bar, so it might just be hidden under.
Yeah, it's not. But there's also, I have a completely blank model up, so maybe that's what's wrong. Because
okay.
I'll figure it out, I guess, or I'll ask Peter or somebody. But yeah.
Yeah, because usually I ran into that a lot where like I just couldn't get to the tray. Like my tray was there, but it kind of gets like jumbled, and you can rearrange that too. Like
but once I get this figured out, every time I open SketchUp, it should be there. It'll be pointing to the component library.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Exactly.
So I don't have to use the 3D warehouse.
Right. Exactly. Because that's why I gave you guys that file, because otherwise I was like talking to SketchUp. I was like, this is crazy. Like I can't expect people to design, you know, grabbing part by part, because it's just so time consuming versus having the whole library available.
Right.
Yep.
And that file's on your website, or could you send that again?
Yeah, I can send, let me forward that link, because I actually, if you signed up after yesterday, like if you just signed up like just today, I didn't send that link out to the new registrants. So what I'll do is I'll forward that. Let me just find it here. And did I miss anybody else in that email for like the full like Google Drive download link?
Ryan, I think Ken and I need the new one. If you could send it to me.
Yeah. Yep. Jennifer. Okay.
And then on the recording, how do we get a copy of that so I can just share it with Ken too?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll probably just end up sending out another email, like another blast email, because otherwise I had to create like a whole I guess address book of the email addresses. So I think it's probably just easier if I send it out to all the dealers. That way everybody that's interested can look at it. So I will do that. All right. Yep. So I wrote that down. So I'll send that email out to you, Ian, Jennifer, Ken. If there's anybody else I missed, just let me know.
Do you have a preference on the 3D mouse between the wired one or the USB one?
I guess what's the other option? Because I'm using a USB one right now.
You can get, I guess there's a Bluetooth one.
Oh, okay. I mean, I like the wired connections typically, except for my regular mouse. Like I use a regular mouse. I'm guessing the only difference would probably be in price. Like they probably charge a little extra for the Bluetooth or for the wireless
Yeah,
one.
it looks like it's about 20 bucks.
Yeah, so if it's a nominal difference and you like wireless, I'd say go with wireless. It can't, it's not going to be any worse.
But you got to charge it then.
Yeah, you'd have to put a battery in it.
Right.
So.
And will this work simultaneously with a regular mouse?
Yeah. Yep. That's what I do with all my design work. I've got my regular mouse, like I'm a righty, so I use my regular mouse in my right hand, my design mouse in my left hand.
Cool.
Yep. All right, guys. Anything else before we close here?